Donald Trump! Fuck Donald Trump! Fuck Donald Trump! Fuck Donald Trump! You don't deserve to have a dick. We're cutting you off with a water pick, so no one will ever be able to. Fuck Donald Trump!
Let's start that over. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me here for Conversations with Taz. And let's kick things off with a little bit of Trump news. Here we go.
United States and put him in front of a judge?
Well, I'm not involved in it. I'm going to respond by saying you'll have to speak to the lawyers, the DOJ. I've heard many things about him, and we'll have to find out what the truth is. But I will say this, we were inundated by millions of people, many millions of people during the Biden administration. They say 21 million. And a big percentage of those are criminals, serious criminals. I'm not saying just criminals because they came into the border illegally. I'm saying they're criminals at the highest level, murderers. Many of those people murdered more than one person, and they're on the loose. And I was elected to get rid of those criminals, to get them out of our country, or to put them away, but to get them out of our country. And I don't see how judges can take that authority away from a president. We've done an amazing job. Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, we have done an amazing job.
Now, do not get it twisted. If you've been around here for a while, you know I'm not a fan of Trump. I also don't know what's going on with the camera tonight, but we'll get that fixed. This is one of those rare times where he's telling the truth. He does not know the details. He does not know what's going on. I've told you all this before, and I need you to really pay attention to this. There are multiple power grabs going on at the same time. There are people that were hoping that he would get a second term because they know his ego, his narcissism, and his allegiance to lying won't ever let himself look bad. But if he can't come up with the lie, he'll just be honest. I don't know anything about it. He doesn't. Tom Homan has been making the rounds saying what his agenda is. The Heritage Foundation has an agenda behind it. I'm just saying. But there is a trickle-down effect to Trumpism. And one of the longest standing members of Trontaguzzle Trump's Glizzy is Marjorie Taylor Greene. And as we discussed the other night, and like I talked about on TikTok, she tried to backtrack on how her town hall went, and she tried to act like she was bullied. Let's take a look at what really happened.
Why are you such a coward? In the face of an obvious fascist takeover, Andrew. Whoa. Scary. That's scary. I've yet to see a fascist gathering. That doesn't exist in the Republican Party. I live in a place where I am one of the members of Congress that usually has the highest amount of death threats. What are you doing to protect us in the 14th District from the damage and extreme hardship of Trump's tariffs? Gutting of Social Security and Medicaid. Doge gutting our government with a chainsaw approach and the utter destruction and ignoring of our Constitution and rule of law. He is not well physically or mentally, and he's making nonsensical orders based on his whim of the day. How are you going to rein him in to protect us? Oh, poor Christina. Poor Christina. Well, I'm sure, Christina, you think that you're pretty smart. But the reality is you are being completely brainwashed by whatever source of news you listen to.
Fascism reigns supreme with the new iteration of the GOP, aka MAGA. Number one. Number two, are you all ready to remind them where the power resides? Are you? Are you truly ready to remind them? Because it is appalling for me to watch a politician try to bully and insult their constituency while also playing victim, as a default damsel in distress always does. But you all have turned over your power. You're cowering to them as they cower to Trump. While you're sitting here going, I don't know how we got here. I don't know how we get out. Remind them that they are in power because of your vote. It does not matter how much money somebody throws into their campaign. Because let's be honest, what merch, what freebie, what cookout, what commercial really swayed you? And if you're swayed by those things, what should you really be in control of? And should you really be complaining right now if that's all it took? You know who you're going to vote for, whether it's by name recognition, if you just vote by party lines, if you are a single issue voter, which I will never understand because a single issue does not encapsulate the entirety of your existence within the confines of these here borders. But remember, she was talking real big and bad outside of being behind her keyboard. So she could go back and be a keyboard warrior and say, well, I did this, that, and the other while playing victim and while she had police and security. But let's keep rolling with this administration. Because if you're not aware of RFK's latest zingers, you can click the link in my bio and go to my TikTok page. It's labeled RFK and autism. It's also posted here on YouTube. But let's look at who he's putting on his autism research team.
Stood out to us that Secretary Kennedy has hired someone named David Geyer to conduct analysis of the links between autism and vaccines. He was charged by the state of Maryland in 2011 with practicing medicine without a license. That was weeks after his father's medical license was suspended for putting autistic children at risk by giving them a hormone blocking agent. So, what should the public know or expect from the work that he will do for the U.S. government?
So all I can say is I would not concede. He's, to the best of my knowledge, he's not had any training after college in any of the sciences that we value here. What I think we can expect is the expected, that there will be an association determined between vaccines and autism because it's already been determined. This is not how science is conducted.
Now, keep in mind that RFK Jr. is, and I never thought in my lifetime I would see it. Like, idiocracy is becoming reality. Life is beginning to imitate art instead of art imitating life. But I knew we were on this trajectory since the mid-1980s, but I digress. Never thought that I would hear a secretary of a federal department hold a press conference and tell people, if you just read, if you just research, you will see. Sir, it's your job to bring the information. It's not your job for people to insinuate to people to go down a conspiracy theory rabbit hole. But of course, he wants to attach everything to the environment because he's an environmental attorney, and he doesn't want to admit, as a cis Catholic white man from a widely respected political powerhouse within the United States, you know, he hails from Camelot adjacent, that he has his own issues and he does not want to address them. Now, I said this before, that he has a problem with vaccines, and it's more for duality, partially because of the polio vaccine. And the other thing is he doesn't want to address that there may have been and may still be people in his family with autism. And you can tell how he talks about autism. He doesn't understand what it is, because he said us folks that have autism can't go to the bathroom by ourselves, we'll never date, we'll never hold down a job, all of these things. And quick side note, if you're a Black person, specifically a Black woman, and if you have been diagnosed with bipolar 2, go for another diagnosis. You may be autistic. But it's not the only one from this administration that's, you know what? Let's just look at what the latest and not so greatest press secretary does before she meets the press.
We now have video of White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, the same one who regularly lies on TV, bowing her head and praying out loud to Jesus moments before stepping up to the lectern to tell lies. Take a look at this. I have a lot to say about this. Take a listen.
Lord Jesus, please give us the strength, the knowledge, the ability to articulate our words, have fun, and be confident in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Okay.
Okay. If this were, but I apologize if people are trying to eat while watching this, that is absolutely vomitous. If this were just a personal moment of faith, fine. This is the official mouthpiece of the White House on government time in a public building, holding a prayer to Jesus before a press briefing. And her staff proudly blasted it out to the world like it's a campaign ad for a Christian nationalism starter kit. Okay? You don't need to be anti-religion to see what's going on here. This is state-sanctioned performative piety designed to fuse Trumpism with religious identity. It's not just a prayer. This is branding. It's a way to signal to the base, we're not just Republicans, we are God's chosen team. And when faith becomes a political marketing tool, what you get is a government that looks more like a megachurch than a functioning democracy. And that's what we have. There's a reason that authoritarian movements often will lean on religion, not because they're holy, not because they're believers necessarily, but because faith offers an answer when the facts are inconvenient. You don't need evidence for a policy or competence in office or coherence on the podium. You just need faith. Believe in us, believe in me, believe in the mission. Doubt becomes a form of disloyalty, even to what Jesus would want. And we've seen this playbook used by other regimes before, Franco, others, where religiosity becomes a stand-in for legitimacy.
Let's put some true clarity to this. What she did is the American way. It is what the United States has done since it came over, blood-drenched the soil, and colonized it. You must accept that the Pilgrims came over here because of their tyrannical religious beliefs. They wanted to and came over here and were successful in weaponizing religion. And each time the United States wants to do something egregious, they weaponize Christianity. They utilize that version of Christianity that is do as I say and not as I do. They place themselves as the deity, not the deity follower. That is exactly what they do, and that's why they're doing it now. Let us not forget the Ham Doctrine that said that it was okay to enslave Black people into chattel slavery. There's going to be a resurgence of a new doctrine so they can get away with their current kidnappings, because we can't call it a deportation because deportation requires due process, and that's not what's happening. They will lie to you and they will present you with an impossible bar to reach for. And they sit back and laugh, knowing that you will never reach for that bar, but they know that they will weaponize you to lie for them, to protect them, and to try to force other people. Christianity, tyrannical Christianity, within the confines of the United States, is the biggest MLM there ever was and will be. And it's not even about profitability. The pyramid is built upon moral superiority. They build a chain of hierarchy. And as long as the person below you makes you feel as if you're morally superior to them and you force onto them to be morally superior to them, that's why you have some Black folk, some brown folk, some indigenous folk that spew respectability politics, that have such high levels of internalized racism. It gives them that moral high ground. But since we're still on this Trump administration, and like I said, all of these state-sanctioned kidnappings, let's take a look at least 2 times that they've trampled all over the Constitution, trampled all over immigration legislation, and shown you that until you reclaim your power as a voter and shown them that their money means nothing at the ballot box, take a look.
Juan Mendez's wife, Mary Lou, says when ICE vehicles began following their vehicle on Monday and then surrounded them here on Tallman Street in New Bedford, she took out her phone and started recording. You can see an ICE agent using a large hammer to break the back passenger window of their car. Mary Lou says the agents were focused on her husband, Juan, but kept calling him Antonio. That's the name of another man who lives in their building. Thinking this is a case of mistaken identity, Juan called his attorney, who told them to stay in the car and not give the agents any information until she got there. Their attorney tells NBC 10 Boston that Juan is a Guatemalan immigrant who's undocumented but in the process of changing his immigration status and has no criminal record. Mary Lou is in the country on asylum. But instead of waiting for their lawyer, the ICE agents smashed the car window, broke into the vehicle, and dragged the couple out. Marilu didn't want to show her face, but she described the terrifying moments to us.
Quebraron la ventana del carro.
They looked for a hammer and they broke the car window and dragged us out of the car. 3 ICE agents held my husband. They took us out unjustly. I tried to talk to them and asked them if they had an order to detain him. They didn't respond or show me anything. They had no reason to detain him. We've been following the rules of this country. We are doing things the right way. That's why we have a lawyer.
Juan Mendez's attorney says she's been told he's being held in a detention facility in Dover, New Hampshire, and has a hearing on May 7th. ICE has not responded to our requests for comment.
And let me ask you this again. If the narrative that they're only deporting the most despicable, cruel, heinous people that are coming in, and they're the reason why we have crime and destruction and dysfunction in this country, why not put them through due process? I want you all to keep in mind that the border czar has said that he has a goal of, his words, deporting 1 million people. That's all he said, 1 million people. He didn't say 1 million criminals, because do we really have 1 million criminals? Because you're only labeled a criminal after you've been convicted. Because before you've been found out, tried, and convicted, you're just a citizen. You're just a resident. And there are more and more instances of them not even getting the names right. And I want you to keep something in mind. There are no women or children that are being shipped off to El Salvador because, like I brought to you all the other week, they're not accepting. They won't let women, because there were 4 women on the plane that went over that case that's currently going through the court system. And they said, no, you got to take them back. And those women are now testifying, not for the federal government, but on the opposing side. But I want you to question, where are they? Because there was a child on their way to school in a Winnie the Pooh t-shirt that was handcuffed by ICE. But if you think it's just the black and the brown, honey, I got news for you.
Literally drove my car to Canada for the weekend. And on the way back, I was treated like a criminal.
An unwelcome return home for Bashir Attallah and his wife Jessica on Sunday when they say Customs and Border Patrol officers stopped them at the border between Vermont and Canada.
He asked me, exit the vehicle right now, and he reached for his gun. I said, okay, I'm exiting the vehicle. Keep your gun at your waist.
Just hours before, Attallah celebrated Palm Sunday with his family. Now he was being arrested.
They handcuffed me. They twisted my arm.
It was like a shock for me.
A real estate attorney, Attallah says he's been an American citizen for over 10 years. He immediately started questioning why he was being detained.
Even if you ask questions, they say we don't know, it's the government.
Attallah says CBP agents requested to look into his email on his phone, which he denied them access to because of attorney-client privilege.
So I had to, under duress, give him permission to look through my email, through my privileged information, and he made me write a statement signed by me saying that I gave him permission to look through the email.
After several requests, Attallah says CBP agents called his sister Celine Attallah, who is an immigration attorney.
It started with the immigrants. It's coming to us Americans, and it's gonna go after all of us.
After nearly 5 hours, Attallah says he and his wife were released. They are now pursuing legal action.
I really thought things would change after this administration, when we had Mr. Trump in office. Things would change to the better. Things actually changed to the worse.
You thought things were going to change for the better because as an immigrant, you know that your complexion provides you with protection. Well, at least you thought that it would in this administration, but you forgot that the mighty dollar is the one complexion that reigns supreme. And you didn't pay attention to the fact that Trump is so easily manipulated. Why do you think these people weren't vying for positions in the first Trump administration? Because they knew that there were guardrails in there. And Trump, only thing he learned is don't use actual careers, politicians with scruples. Don't use people who actually have an allegiance to the country. He wants people who have an allegiance to him. He wants that friend group that he never had growing up because Trump doesn't know how to make friends. Trump has been unsuccessfully trying to be a bully since he was a small child. That's why his father had to pick up and move him into private school. He could not be a bully. He even tried to bully his brother Fred and got humiliated to the point where he no longer eats certain foods. Just like I needed you all to let go of the urban legend started by Trump himself that he just grew up wealthy with a silver spoon in his mouth. No, his father was a miser. His father was Ebenezer Scrooge without the midnight visits. This is why when you look at Trump, he's cosplaying wealth. This is why he talks so much about what he has and what he does and why he's so great. He doesn't have it. He is the creepy guy at the bar that wants to keep convincing you that he owns the company that he sweeps the floors to. And don't get it twisted. I respect every occupation, but you get what I'm saying. See, all of you that spent his last presidency and the years in between lying for him, making shit up, trying to interpret for him, this is what you get. This is the child that you covered for all of their bullshit, that you strong-armed people into being around them and not reporting them and all these things. This is what you get. This is the product. And the fact that there are so many people still willing to lie on his behalf is astounding. But the only unifier in white culture is lying and thievery, treachery and savagery. Let's roll out the next one.
We now know the evil mastermind behind the illegal extraditions to El Salvador. Spoiler alert, it's not Stephen Miller. All the credit should go to Michigan's trashiest Nepo baby, Eric Prince, brother to Michigan's second trashiest Nepo baby, former Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos. Don't forget that this piece of shit founded the privatized military company Blackwater, which made him even wealthier off of government contracts. Prince being the heir to a billion-dollar auto parts company, which he ended up selling in order to found Blackwater, was never exactly hurting for money. Being a former Navy SEAL, he simply saw an opportunity to grift off of government contracts. And because this country loves to reward the wealthy, Blackwater and its affiliates became the largest of the State Department's 3 private security companies. Even after Blackwater became infamous for human rights violations, it was still rewarded with hundreds of millions of dollars in government contracts. Prince himself continued to escape accountability even after he was investigated by the FBI and had to settle for nearly $50 million for trafficking military equipment. Prince has also made a name for himself by supporting bad actors who aim to take power by force. In case it's not clear whose side Eric Prince is on, it's not the side that will be viewed kindly by history. On Friday, Politico reported that it obtained a proposal by Eric Prince and a cohort of defense contractors to industrialize illegal extraditions to El Salvador. In this proposal, the evil geniuses outline a strategy to circumvent the courts, namely by designating part of the prison, which is CCOT, as American territory. Now, it's expected that that proposal will be discussed at the White House meeting between the current administration and El Salvador's self-professed dictator Nayib Bukele this week. If that business deal is made, Eric Prince would get the contract. And that explains why Eric Prince registered a new company called 2USV in Wyoming on Wednesday. Now, Prince has been working behind the scenes on this plan for months. It also explains why the United States boosted El Salvador's safe travel rating on Tuesday. Until Tuesday, El Salvador was rated a level 2, which urges caution for U.S. travelers. El Salvador is now rated as a level 1, which is the safest travel rating, and puts El Salvador ahead of France, the UK, and Italy. And the person who lobbied for that change was Eric Prince. And it turns out that he's been working behind the scenes on this lucrative business deal between the United States and El Salvador for months. And the proposal that was obtained by Politico highlights Eric Prince's plans for profiting off of mass extraditions. As part of the proposal, Eric Prince will facilitate an operation that would handle the logistics of gathering 100,000 people from U.S. prisons, holding them at a 10,000-person detention camp, and then flying them to El Salvador. But there's more. Prince is also asking the government for access to immigration documents. And the reason he wants access to those documents is to give him broader authority over locating, capturing, detaining, and deporting people. But that's not enough for Eric Prince. He is asking for more. The proposal states that 2USV will, quote, facilitate a hearing before an immigration judge to adjudicate any pending asylum claim. His company will also work with prosecutors to, quote, make deals with incarcerated individuals whereby some of their prison sentence will be waived in exchange for the granting of a deportation order. What Eric Prince is essentially asking for here is a monopoly over the entire scheme. Now, Eric Prince isn't the only one who plans to grift off of this scheme. This proposal also includes another grift for the administration. The administration wants to make CCOT American territory to get around any legal barriers, as it says here that transferring a prisoner to such a facility would not be an extradition nor a deportation. The administration would then lease the prison back to El Salvador in order for them to oversee the gulag. This way, the Department of Homeland Security would no longer be responsible for detention standards.
And the person who came up with this entire scheme to enable the administration to defy the courts is Erik Prince. In a letter attached to Prince's proposal, El Salvador's Minister of Justice and Public Security, Hector Gustavo Villatoro, stated that Erik Prince was the mastermind of all of this. The letter states that through his new company, 2USV, Erik Prince has been serving as a trade agent for El Salvador to, quote, reach an agreement on the use of El Salvador's prisons to house foreign criminals. Thank God these idiots leave a paper trail. The letter also confirms that the plan is to house up to 100,000 people. Now, Prince has been cooking up this scheme for a very long time. He began pitching this idea with El Salvador last year. Last August, Prince paid a visit to CICOT. It was during that visit when Prince complained about El Salvador's travel safety rating. Interestingly, in an admission of guilt, Prince acknowledges in his proposal that his business plan is not legally sound. The proposal states that it's, quote, highly likely that this effort will be tested judicially by the ACLU or other activist group. Now, Prince's business scheme isn't just to extradite immigrants, it's also to extradite U.S. citizens. That's why the administration has been laying the groundwork the last couple weeks. Prince's real proposal is to arrest and remove 12 million people at a cost of $12 billion. What's been happening so far is that the administration is beta testing Prince's proposal at a smaller scale. Currently, the administration has a one-year deal with El Salvador in which they paid El Salvador $6 million to arrest and extradite over 200 alleged gang members. The next phase of this scheme involves Stephen Miller's plan to denaturalize American citizens and extradite them to El Salvador. It's important to note that the legal bar is set very high for denaturalization. A person would have to commit high crimes and misdemeanors against the United States. That includes committing the big T's, enlisting in a foreign military engaged in opposition to the U.S., or lying in applications for citizenship or as part of the naturalization process. Since day one of this administration, they have been inventing a legal framework in order to circumvent court precedent. Stephen Miller has been leading this effort. In fact, he still aggrieved that during the first administration, they did not get to do any mass denaturalization initiatives. So Miller has been lobbying to, quote, possibly denaturalizing and deporting activists and other individuals whom they label as having committed so-called fraud on their applications for citizenship by subsequently supporting what the administration decides are pro-terrorist causes or groups. In other words, the administration is looking to quash dissent by classifying protests as advocating for terrorism. It's some dictator shit. The administration is also looking for potential legal justifications and technicalities they can exploit for denaturalizing citizens, which they're already using against Venezuelan nationals. And they're using tattoos as their justification. And the administration is downplaying their heinous plan by telling the press, quote, it's not like we would send everybody there, but depending on the case, it can be an option. This is a standard process of exploring legal options, as all administrations do one way or another. As Kika Matos, the president of the National Immigration Law Center, said, quote, what's to stop the administration from using the same pretext they used to send people to El Salvador and claiming that these U.S. citizens are the worst offenders? She continued, quote, they could start engaging in the same kind of pretextual deportation of people for whom the offenses at the end of the day might have something to do with what you say, how you live your life, what tattoos you have on your body. She added, quote, this is all about this administration testing the bounds of the law and trying to consolidate their power by advancing unconstitutional laws and policies, starting with immigrants. And the people who are whispering in the current occupant of the White House's ear want him to use the hammer of state and executive power to do something big and truly unprecedented. One of those people is Erik Prince. Another is Mike Davis, a FedSoc member and founder of the Article 3 Project. This fucking guy spends a lot of time with Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk. When asked about the legal precedent for this initiative, Mike Davis said to hell with it. One tool that the administration already has at its disposal is the denaturalization section under the Civil Division of the Department of Justice, which was created during his first term. And I really hate to say that the Biden administration did not undo it. Doing nothing to end this section has made it a lot easier for the current administration to defy court orders. And it's also made it a hell of a lot easier for the very worst people to bend the law to their will in order to exploit vulnerable people for profit. It's bullshit like this that happens when you enable wealthy criminals.
Once again, I told you all there were multiple power grabs going on at one time within this administration because Trump is easily manipulated. I want to take a moment to remind you of something from Project 2025 regarding the Department of Homeland Security. Primary recommendation. This section presents a comprehensive proposal to dismantle the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, arguing that after 20 years, the department has failed to achieve cohesion. Cuccinelli contends that its various components, different missions, have outweighed its decades-long attempt to function as one department, rendering the whole disjointed rather than cohesive. The recommendation outlines a detailed reconstructing plan. Now, first of all, I don't know why we needed ICE, Border Patrol, and everything. They all do the same thing, but let's continue. Number 1, create a standalone border and immigration agency by combining U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Refugee Resettlement, ORR, and the Department of Justice, DOJ, Executive Office for Immigration Review, EOIR, and Office of Immigration Litigation, OIL. This new entity would become the third largest department measured by manpower with over 100,000 employees. But I thought we were cutting. Okay. Number 2, move the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, to the Department of Transportation. And if you took note of a video that I did yesterday on TikTok, you already know that, first of all, that department is pretty much resigning itself because the tech bro, Elon Musk, that was put in charge of it, well, he's not really a techie. Number 3, relocate the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, to either the Department of the Interior or, if combined with CISA, to Transportation. 4, transfer the U.S. Coastal Guard to the Department of Justice with provision for its move to the Department of Defense in time of full-scale war. An alternative suggestion is to move USCG to DOD for all purposes. 5, divide the U.S. Secret Service, moving its protection element to DOJ and its financial enforcement arm to the Treasury. 7, shift the Science and Technology Directorate, S&T, to the DOD and the Office of Countering Weapons and Mass Destruction to the FBI. Do you all remember the branches of the SS? Yes, Hitler's SS. For those of y'all that have been fighting against believing that Nazi Germany, Hitler, got his blueprint from the United States, here's your wake-up call. This should be further confirmation of what I've been telling y'all before. The United States did not become a part of the Allied forces and join the war because it had an epiphany to do what was right. Because if the United States was trying to really, truly stand on the right side of history, it would not have become a safe haven for Nazis. Let me repeat, if the United States was trying to stand on the right side of history, it would not have become a haven for Nazis. But it did. This is why you see people lying and fervently contorting themselves to back this administration. This is why you see people making up the most egregious, illogical lies. They don't care if it makes sense or not. This is why you see people putting on full display that they lack humanity. I've seen comments where people have said this is a small price to pay, where people stated that the vandalization of Tesla vehicles was more important than people being human trafficked. I want you to keep that in mind. I want you to keep that in mind. And I also want you to realize what I've been telling you. Trump wants friends. Trump wants to be at the cool kids table, and Trump wants to finally be accepted into the upper echelon of wealth within this country. He wants to be accepted into high society. They know they're never going to accept him. That's why I find it laughable when today an Alaskan congresswoman admitted on camera that she was afraid of retribution. We have gotten to a point where we have handed over our power, where they think that they can toss whatever money at somebody and they're going to be primaried. Even when we showed what Elon Musk tried to do recently, that that's not going to work. We have to be more diligent in it. We have to get to the mindset of stop having record voter registration, but not record voting turnout. We have to get out of the mindset of, oh, somebody else is going to do it. It's enough people. No, you have to do it. That is the most minuscule, basic thing you can do to protect yourself. It was bad enough when Colin Kaepernick sacrificed his entire career and there were Black, brown, indigenous people of color that were like, I'm still going to watch. That doesn't matter. That's not going to make a difference. No shit, it's not going to make a difference if you won't participate. If you're banking on everybody else to participate, you are no different than the people who sat back, criticized, condemned, and shit on the names of the leaders that came before us, that then in their old age, because they were allowed to age, oh, they were a good man. That was a good woman. You know, I used to live 2 blocks from them, and what the fuck did you do? I've used this example before, and I'm going to keep using it. When The Pursuit of Happiness came out with Will Smith and Jaden Smith, there were so many people who had a problem with Tandy Newton's character. I can't believe she did. Oh, I know she kicking herself. You don't realize you are that character. Because every day of your life, how many times are you trying to talk somebody out of following their dreams? How many times are you trying to talk somebody out of advocacy? How many times are you trying to talk somebody out of activism? How many times are you trying to talk your way out of doing anything? But yet you want and need and require the change. Where do you think change comes from? How do you think it happens? You sitting back like Archie Bunker complaining about every fucking thing does not make change fall from the heavens upon thee. And if you're not going to get your ass up and do it, why are you talking the next person out of doing it? I needed to finally click. This is why we are where we are. And now all of a sudden, you want to call, where's this person? Where's that person? Why you ain't doing this? Why aren't you doing it? You got all the energy in the world to go cuss out little Serafina down at the local Piggly Wiggly because she didn't pack your groceries the way that you want to. You got all the energy when you're trying to defraud a company, when you go out to eat with friends, claiming that everything but seasoning done fell on your damn plate or in your bowl or in your glass. You good with energy when it comes to a grift, but nothing else. And you wonder why we got the greatest grifter in the Western Hemisphere, sitting in the Oval Office. Mm. 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 Everything that folks proclaimed Barack Obama was going to be, Donald Trump is, and you accept it wholeheartedly. Every racial trope that y'all throw at us, Donald Trump is, and you gobble it up and you make excuses for it and you wonder why we're here. On the other side, you Euro-Americans, you thought that by standing on the left, it would hide your racism and your biases, and it doesn't. You'll show up and support everybody that makes you feel warm and fuzzy and cozy inside, but nobody who brings you the truth. Y'all good for saying, oh, they're underrated. Nobody on this planet is underrated. They're under-supported. You all gatekeep change makers to the point where they can't make change. Because the people that y'all gave platforms to, what have they done? You want to attach yourself to a main character so badly because you think it's going to give you a great footnote in history, but you've attached yourself to people who aren't even history makers. They're profit proprietors. Keep that in mind. Now, as we close, as always, please check out the link in my bio if you want extended anti-racism journey content, especially the journaling and extended history. Please subscribe to my Substack for all of you little nasties. Yes, I finally got it out there, finally found a platform for it. The Taz After Dark. It is now linked in my link tree in my bio. So you can skedaddle over there. There's just one story up there. I'm waiting to get some feedback to see if we want to continue. As always, excuse me, thank you for joining me here for Conversations with Taz. I will see you all again live and in living color over on TikTok tomorrow and on Sunday. As always, each one teach one, each one reach one, and go out and get into some good trouble. But as always, no trouble that requires bail in this economy.